Flight attendants, what's your wildest story while on the job?
Story 1.
A long flight from Seattle to Japan. Two single people in an otherwise empty four-seat row start to hit it off. 2 hours later, they're sitting right next to each other and absolutely smitten in an otherwise empty four-seat row. 3 hours later, they're sitting right next to each other with a couple blankets over their laps and hands. Both of them went to the bathroom in the back of the plane. They were seated closer to the front, within 3 minutes of each other. Get back to their seats eventually and fall asleep leaning on each other. Guy wakes up and moves back to his original seat, to have more space to sleep, I assume. Lady gets agitated. Guy goes back to sleep and lady watches movies, constantly looking over at him sleeping. Plane lands. Guy gets an opposite conga deplaning line than lady. I follow them onto the concourse for science. Lady can't find Guy. Guy is gone. A correctly structured drama in 3 acts. I love it. The one flight stand.
Story 2.
I was on a flight to Paris with next to no people for some reason. Couple gets on board and seems very lovey and also very drunk. I'm on a window row alone and they sit a row behind me to the right, the 3 seats in the middle. They get handsier as the flight progresses. I can hear them very well. He keeps supplying her with champagne. She starts to fall asleep on and off. He keeps trying to get her to fool around or go to the bathroom with him. Over the course of an hour or so, I realize they don't know each other and met in the airport. This is based on context clues of their conversation and what they tell flight attendants. He's still ordering drinks and waking her up to kind of fool around. He eventually goes to the bathroom and she basically passes out. I take the opportunity to let the flight attendant know what's going on, that it's disruptive on an overnight flight, and that I think may be unsafe for her. The flight attendant catches him coming out of the bathroom looking for her because she didn't meet him in there. They make him sit in a different row and mostly leave her alone. He keeps trying to get her attention, but she ignores him for the rest of flight after waking up. Maybe not totally NSFW, but I always wonder what the full deal was and if she was okay, or would have been if they weren't separated.
Story 3.
My mom was a station manager, not an attendant, but she had a few funny NSFW stories. We lived on an island, so most of the planes were smaller, over-wing prop planes. Larger than Cessnas and big enough to have a cockpit with a shutting door, but not big enough to have a bathroom and small enough to have very specific weights and balances. Every once in a while, in the right season, planes would have only a handful of passengers. One time, there was only a pair of people on the whole flight, a couple. Halfway into the flight, the pilots radioed in a strange issue. The plane felt like it was chugging and bouncing. They were worried. They were over the ocean, so couldn't just land, but requested priority to the closest runway. It was serious. A few minutes later, they radioed back and said never mind. When they landed, the 2 passengers grabbed their shit and left as soon as possible. The pilots told my mom what happened. The passengers were seated in the front row for balance, but once in the air decided to go all the way to the seats in the tail. And when the co-pilot came out, the man was doing the woman so hard it was making the rear of the little plane reverb and bounce. Finally, this is the comment I was looking for. After wading through stories of wild ambient behaviors and accidental shits, this also reminds me of when I lived in one of those skinny SF buildings and shared a 2-bedroom with a roommate. When his girlfriend came over, the whole building swayed.
If you enjoy our channel, we'd love to invite you to become a member. Joining is easy. Just click the join button on our channel homepage or beneath any of our videos. Your support means the world to us, and as a member, you'll gain access to exclusive perks and content. Thank you for being part of our community. We look forward to welcoming you as a member soon.
Story 4.
Not me, but a friend of mine's mom. Back in the early 70s, she was a flight attendant. My friend's dad was a politician flying with one of his friends or coworkers. The friend said to the flight attendant, "I'm doing you the biggest favor of your life," and shoved her into my friend's dad's lap. They wound up married, and I eventually got one of my best friends out of it. Completely unacceptable behavior in any time, though. Damn, 70s were indeed a different time, huh?
Story 5.
Not a flight attendant, but I can say that my ex, former flight attendant, told me she gave the pilot some while on an empty flight when she used to be a stewardess in her 20s. First officer flew the jet while they were getting it on in the first class seats. She said joining the Mile High Club wasn't all that. About a decade ago, my wife and I were on a Ryanair flight next to this 30 to 40-year-old woman with massive lip injections and a big fur-lined coat with leopard print shirt underneath, high heels. The works, clearly trying to our off an air of fancy, despite flying Ryanair. Anyway, about halfway through the flight, my wife nudged me and gestured towards this woman's body and then crotch. There was a hand in front of her pants, and you could clearly see a finger slowly swirling around in there. Plain as day. Know how when you play hide and seek with an 18-month-old and they close their eyes and think you can't see them because they can't see you? Apparently this woman didn't know that that's not how it works. Or she was on pills and didn't have a care in the world. Or both.
Story 6.
An old lady waited until the seatbelt sign went on prior to landing, then got up to go to the toilet. Flight attendant came over, told her she had to sit down. There was a language barrier. There was lots of arguing. The old lady then slapped the flight attendant, and a couple of other flight attendants rushed in. The old lady was sat back down, proceeded to shit herself, and was then arrested when the plane landed. I guess nature calls when it calls. My wife, daughter, and I took off from the runway like 20 minutes after. My daughter has to shit badly. I asked the attendant, and she told me no. I said, "Why we're in the air, and she has to go." She told me I know. Daughter shit her pants. 10 seconds later, she said she can go. Daughter, too. Walks to the bathroom and drops wet turds all down the aisle. People start puking, flight attendant yelling at me because they had to clean it up. The entire plane smelled like shit for the entire ride. At least 8 people puked. Upon deplaning the flight, attendant said she will never deny a 2-year-old the bathroom again, while giving me the middle finger. We still laugh today. Asking out of curiosity, is it really not an option to let people go to the toilet in such a situation? I have no idea about planes or flying. Would it be dangerous? Edit. Thank you for all the answers. Now I'm even more confused. I've done it. We were prepping for landing, and my gut started to feel like Niagara Falls. I had that type of pain where you get a cold sweat and your head starts swimming. I looked at the flight attendant sitting in the back and mouthed bathroom while she strapped herself in. She shook her head. I gave her a look that could be described as a puppy that just watched its mother get run over and mouthed, "Please." She pointed at the bathroom door. I was in there until after we landed. Told her thank you. Then thank God. I'd never see these people again. Even worse that it was just a puddle jump flight of like 45 minutes. I think you just have to break the rules against their permission sometimes. It's their job to say no, so you can't ask them. If they say okay, and something bad happens, they lose their job. But if you break the rules, they have deniability to say, "I said no." So, sometimes just break the rules. I'm sure everyone on the plane would prefer you do that than shit on yourself, the plane's seat, and have the entire plane deal with that mess. I had this exact same situation happen to me. The flight attendant looked at me and said, "I'm not telling you that you can go use the bathroom, but I'm also not going to stop you if you do."